So yeah, why don't we start by you just telling me about your nonprofit? Because I saw just recently you finally got that form approved. I forget what form it was, like the 501c(b) or something like that.
Yeah, so it's a dumb long process for no reason, I feel like. And because I've never done this before. I have no idea what I'm doing. I mean, yes, I am so professional about this. Anyway, it's so you have to sort of like get approval by like the IRS first to do it. And so we got that. We registered in the state of California, which is where I'm at right now, and that got approved. We are still waiting for the state of California to approve us as a charity.
Okay.
So there's still that hanging, but for the most part we're like fully like approved, or 98% approved. Yeah, so I'm very excited about that. And we have tons of things planned. Now, I think the more I work on it, the more I'm kind of like choosing like which projects we're actually like focusing on more a little bit. And so lately we have been doing a lot of panels. And I think that's what I like the most about having this nonprofit. Wait, I just like started talking and I was like, didn't even explain what the name of my nonprofit was or anything like that. So we are Psychology for Geeks, and the whole point of my nonprofit is to provide a safe space for everyone and sort of blend mental health and geek culture. So at this point, we're doing a lot of sort of like content for social media, and like I said, like we're doing panels and I do interviews, and there's like a lot of sort of like free resources online that we have. But I'm really excited about the panels because I basically get to like geek out with like a bunch of people, and I see it like as a free sort of like study or like a free class sometimes, because right now I was just emailing back right before I jumped on this. I was emailing back people, and we are doing a panel on horror, and I'm chicken. I don't do horror at all. Like I no, that's not my thing. But I'm really curious about it. I was like, why do people like it? Like, it's so scary. I'm so scared. Like, so I'm kind of like just sitting there listening to people talk about why they love these things. And also, like, lately too, we have like a Star Wars one. Wait, I think we have a D&D one that hasn't been
Nice.
released quite yet. But that one I was so very excited about as well, because I am like a noob like when it comes to like D&D. I know sort of like the basics of it,
Hmm.
but that's sort of like about it. And then so like hearing people talk about it and like give so many ideas as to how I can just like in my own personal life like play, or what kind of things I could do in therapy as well. It has just been so cool. So I'm like, yes, I hope those are things that people are also interested in, not just me.
Sure, sure. No, I know you said it's like it gives you a chance to geek out, but I guess talk me through. You can either give me like a specific example or kind of like a broad strokes on how you take something like the concept of D&D or horror, and I think we spoke about Magic the Gathering one, and how those translate to either mental health counseling, or how we can translate that into somebody either like a layperson or just somebody improving their mental health or mental wellness just through those outlets.
Um, so for horror and Magic the Gathering, I don't know because I have no idea. But okay, so a lot of it is really just having this sense of community. So when you come into therapy, you're kind of like you're a stranger. I'm a stranger to people. Like when I'm doing therapy, right? But I'm
Right.
also here, like here. Let me talk to me about your deepest, darkest trauma, right? And then people are like, no. But if I for example, one of the things that I've noticed, like if I just have a lot of therapists are doing this thing where like they talk about their hobbies, and it's like sort of like a way for be like, hey, this is the things I enjoy like outside of doing therapy. if people see that I, like geeky things, then they're like, oh, then you kind of understand. I had a lot of times where in my office, you can't see it now, but the rest of the room is fully decorated with all kinds of geeky things. So, and I used to have a lot of this in my offices, and like, especially when I work with kids, they will come in and they're like, oh, look at that. Oh, look at that. Oh, yeah, you're so cool. And then we start talking about like the things that they liked, and they feel a lot more comfortable. I had kids be like, oh, I really like your office, because I had toys and stuff everywhere, and they just like, it was a comfortable space to be in for them. And same thing with adults. Like as soon as you start like, oh, I kind of recognize this, or I like this from like Lord of the Rings or whatever, then it just becomes, it's this sort of like automatic connection of like, oh, you can kind of understand what I'm trying to say. And even if I don't have anything, because right now I'm doing a lot of telehealth, so this is sort of like the background that they get to see. And but somebody said, oh, for, I always ask about hobbies. So when somebody said, oh, I play on my Switch, and I was like, really, like, what do you play? Like, I'm trying to play too. And then like it was just like this happy smile of like, oh, okay, you kind of understand what I'm talking about, that even if I'm like an adult, like I can still play these things. So that just helps a lot. And then for like more specifics, it can be sort of like anything from like using a specific character, like, oh, why did you like this character? How were they able to overcome such a thing? How can we apply that to your like real life? Or it can be like, oh, remember one of the, oh, what's the one? I was gonna do a Lord of the Rings one, but I totally forgot. But like, there's like a lot of some examples online of people being like, oh, like even if you didn't get like your Hogwarts letter when you were 12, or you didn't get to be chosen for like the Half-Blood camp or whatever, like when you're 50, maybe Gandalf will show up at your door, and you can still do something like amazing with your life. You don't, like, age doesn't really matter for that. So it's just kind of like that with kiddos, just playing video games, like legit. I did an interview with someone who does like VR therapy as well. And like, just like, you're just there sitting playing video games, because a lot of the times whatever habits we have in terms of how we deal with like stress, or how we deal with everybody in the video game like ganging up on us or something being very difficult, however we deal with that in like the game, that's how we deal with it in life. So if we are able to walk you through it in the game, then when it happens in real life, then you're like, oh, okay, so this is what I did for the game, this is what I can do for like real life. So it just makes it a lot easier to remember, and also more fun. I feel like my ADHD brain is all about fun. So if things are not fun, I'm like zoned out. So and that's how I get, because a lot of the times too, like more traditional therapy, I would say, it also includes like having homework, like things that you have to practice like throughout the week, or 2 weeks in between like your therapy sessions. And a lot of people are like, homework, no, I ain't gonna do that. Or like, oh, I'm so busy with life and I can't do homework, I don't have time to do those things. But then if I say something like, okay, well, go and play D&D with your friends, you're like, oh yeah, sure, I'll do that. Like, it's completely different. And then so yeah, and it's just like, really, like, self-care is, I'm so sorry, I'm just like talking nonstop today.
No,
like, but self-care is like the easiest way, right, to do self-care is to do something fun that you love. So yeah, whether it's playing video games, building puzzles, playing chess, reading a book, reading an instrument, playing sports, whatever, like, geek out. That's what you need. That'll be good for you. So I'm like, yeah, whatever you're interested in, go forth and do that. Like, that will be so helpful for you.
No, I like that. I want to touch on that. I want to touch on that later, so let's put a pin in the self-care part. But I guess let's take a step back. Let's zoom out a little bit. Why Psych4Geeks? Why not just I help mental health, or I help the Gen Pop with mental health?
Because it's fun. No, so okay. So originally when I started I think it was like during the pandemic. I started sort of like having this, like posting on social media, not as consistently, but because I have this idea of like, oh, hey, for me, social media has been really helpful because it allowed me to like keep connected with people. Like I just keep sending my friend memes. That's how I communicate with them and be like, hey, I'm still alive. How are you doing? Kind of thing. So, and like it gave me so many ideas of like different foods I could try, different places I could like go hike or whatever. And then so I really loved it. But then in therapy, I often heard people say, "Oh, I need to stop using social media because it's so bad." And then I'm like, "Oh, like don't you have a safe space that's like social media that's like all fun?" And then so I was like, "Oh, I'll make it. I'll make that." And then so I started doing it, and then it sort of like started evolving, and then it just sort of like became, at first I was like, oh, just for fun. And then I was like, well, I can start building a brand that eventually will become sort of like my my private practice at one point. And it just started like changing. It just eventually just became like nonprofit. But we kind of, there's two sides of Psychology for Geeks. We do a lot of geeky things for the community to encourage them to like do like just do fun things for their mental health, like more time spent in their hobbies on a daily basis or weekly basis. But we also do sort of like more mental health things that are less geeky. Some of the panels that I've done before are primarily just talking about mental health in general. So we're not like combining it with geek culture because it's not everyone's cup of tea. I do a lot of community presentations, and those are primarily like just mental health. So yeah, so like there is, I guess, a time and a place for everything. So online, I do a little bit of both, I would say. In person, so far, I live in a very small community where things are still back in, like, I guess, the early 2000s, where you have to do things in person. People don't really answer their emails or return phone calls. So it's a very conservative in some ways because it's a very small community. So like resources are very scarce here. Any type of resource is very scarce. So I was like, okay, well, I'll talk about mental health because it's important. And a lot of the times people are like, mental health, what's mental health? Are you doing like, are you gonna therapize me? And I'm like, no, I'm not getting paid for that. No, I'm not gonna do that. But it's like there's so much misunderstanding as to like how can even be helpful, because people here are very hardworking and they don't really have time for like any fun or anything like that. So almost in a sense, it can be seen as like a waste of time for them to like take care of their mental health. But I'm like, no, you can be so much more effective in any part of your life if you are taking care of your mental health. So that's sort of like the idea, to try to bring that about. Eventually I would love to do a lot more geeky theme events for the community, and because I kind of came back from being all over the place in California and stuff for school. I came back to my community, but I'm not as connected with the geek community here. So I'm still trying to like build those connections that, and then we can have fun together.
Sure.
Hopefully.
And just sounds like build the community in general. The geeky community.
Yeah.
Your hometown sounds very similar to my hometown, to where it's like going into a time machine and walking back 20 years, because there's actually stores that only accept cash, and very rarely do I even hold cash, because I'm current in modern times. And I'm like, how the hell do you even like make a living? And chances are they don't. Businesses turn a lot where I'm from, and very similar hardworking farming community where they're like, well, just pick yourself up by your bootstraps and work harder type thing. But in reality, use the analogy of you have to sharpen your axe, right? Doesn't matter how long or how many hours you're working. If you're working with a dull axe, you're going to be inefficient. And sharpening your axe, sharpening your mind, can really help improve that efficiency, improve that work performance. And that's a lot of what you were saying.
Yes, and I mean, I when we talked about like when we had like sort of like the interview for my channel, you talked a lot about how it sort of like physical health in a way is very connected to mental health, which I
Hmm.
kind of knew that, but I know very little about physical health in general. And so, yeah, like the times where you're like tired and don't want to go to the gym, or the times that you're tired and you want to go to therapy or ask for help or whatever, those are the times that you need it the most,
Hmm.
right? Like that's when you really need to take that time to exercise, to take care of your health, because your body in itself is telling you, hey, there's something wrong and we need to fix it. What sucks is that your body doesn't tell you exactly what it is. You're gonna have to sit there and try to figure it out.
Yeah.
But yeah, like it is, the more you take care of like your health, like by eating healthy, by exercising daily, by taking care of your mind, and then that everything is gonna be different. There is this it's like a Jack Sparrow quote that I really like, where he talks about like the problem is not the problem, but the problem is how we see the problem.
Mm.
And that's kind of how exactly what we're talking about. We're just going in circles now. But like, if you are taking care of yourself and you're full of energy and you're doing well and you feel good, the problem is going to seem almost insignificant because you're able to overcome it so fast, right? But if you're tired all the time, if you're skipping meals, or if you're working out too hard, or not enough, then a little problem can turn into like this huge mountain and
Hmm.
be like, I can never just I'm just gonna give up, because
Yeah.
it's just so hard to do that.
Yeah. I see that a lot with people trying to start their fitness journey to where, and this is a very common example. So let's say you had a decent routine going 2019, the pandemic happens, throws a huge wrench into things. Maybe you gain the quarantine 15 and maybe you gain a little bit more. And now you're like, I need to lose, over 30 pounds, and I need to go back to what I was doing 5 years ago, right? And so you've been spinning your wheels for 5 years and you think, I can go back to the gym 5 days a week, even though I haven't worked out since the pandemic. And so their barrier to entry becomes that mountain, like you talked about, because they feel like they just keep letting themselves slip farther and farther and farther. So they're lowering their bar of expectations essentially, and then the barrier to entry is just getting higher and higher. And that you can't jump that gap. Rather than saying, okay, let's figure out where we are now. Let's assess what changes we can make in a small, bite-sized daily actions, and improve from there. And it sounds very similar to the more like the mental health philosophy or practices where you start off with these small things and then you grow on them, rather than saying, you're afraid of white animals, so we're going to throw you into a bunny pit, right? There's exposure therapy, but then
I
there's
mean,
also that.
yeah, that is a kind of therapy, but it does not work for everyone. So there,
Right.
there's different ways that we can approach things, and that's sort of like something that I tell like all my clients, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna throw out a bunch of suggestions, but it really is like therapy is kind of like a like a big science experiment, trying to figure out what works best for you and your lifestyle. And from what we discussed before, it sounds like it's the same thing for fitness. Like you have to
Hmm.
figure out what fits into like everyone's individual routine, because I see so many like people online, like some influencers are like, okay, so I wake up at 5 in the morning and I do X, Y, and Z, and then like by noon I've done everything. So then I have all this time to like cater to my 3 different businesses that I'm working on. And I'm like, not everyone is able to do that. So yeah, again, it's just you have to fit into your lifestyle. And I think in order to be healthy, wait, I actually have a question for you.
Okay.
For you, or like when you're working with your clients,
Hmm.
what is health?
That's a good question. So I actually turn that on to the client. And so when they say they want to be healthy, I ask them what that means. And I guess if we were to do broad strokes and use a definition of healthy, it's healthy level blood markers where they are not high blood pressure, they aren't diabetic, or they're improving on those numbers. They have a steady diet, so their cholesterol is not high, and their cardiovascular health is improved or at a healthy level to where they can sustain, not only activities of daily living, but they can carry groceries up, a couple flights of stairs without feeling completely out of breath. They can do other aspects. There are some like strength definitions, like you can carry your body weight, that type of stuff. But I think that's getting more into the nitty gritty. I think a lot of people, when they define health or become healthier, it means making their doctor happy, especially around like blood markers, cholesterol, diabetes, blood pressure, that type of stuff, because those are a lot of the big comorbidities, and also improving their heart and improving their overall strength and being a healthy body fat percentage. I think is a large part of that. But I think a large part of them saying they want to be healthier is they want to be happier, meaning they want to be more confident in themselves. They want to be able to wear the clothes that they wore pre-pandemic that they can't fit in anymore. And so that was a long-winded way of me saying it's very individualized, but I think it boils down to healthy body fat percentage, healthy blood markers, and healthy cardio, a healthy heart.
Because I think a lot of what we see, what is societally like acceptance of like what healthy is a specific body shape or a number on the scale. And for a lot of us, that's sort of like the only information that we have about, well, am I healthy? And sometimes doctors are very busy and they blurt out things that can be harmful to people. Like I've heard people say things like, it's like, okay, so I'm Mexican. My parents are Mexican, and food is very important to our culture. And a lot of doctors are like, okay, you can't eat rice, you can't eat tortillas, you can't eat everything that you eat. So people are like, okay, well, no, I'm not going to listen to you. I'm just going to continue living because you're just basically telling me to eat nothing. What am I supposed to eat? Right? So there is this sort of like a lot of like misunderstanding, I think, when it comes to like health professionals and people, that it can be really harmful, because like those people that are like, well, you're telling me to not eat 99% of the food that I consume. What am I supposed to eat? Just lettuce all day, right? So then they just kind of like swing really hard on the other direction, and they're like, no, I'm just going to continue doing this. And that's harmful for their health, right? But so the way that I see it, for me, health is having a balance, right? I was going to be like, oh, I have an avatar thing but you can't see it. Sorry guys. You can't see my really cool avatar stuff. But like it's really all about balance, right? Like being able to have a consistent routine where you are taking care of yourself, you're taking care of your body, you're taking care of your mind, you're taking care of your like spiritual connection, like all of those, and like being able to like spend enough time alone, but also like in community and in groups, and socializing and everything. So that is, to me, it's what health comes from, and so it I think a lot of what we're doing is just reminding people that there are different definitions or different things that we can do that are actually not so difficult, and like any little change in our life can be an improvement, right? Or like it's not sort of like a huge mountain that they have to climb. It is possible to be able to do that. So I really enjoy when you post a lot of things like online, because okay, honestly, I hate exercise, so I start with like the little things,
the right recipe for you.
Yeah. So like what has worked for me before is hiking. When I was in San Diego, I used to go hiking a lot because I like nature and photography. But now I live in a place where it's way too hot. I don't want to go outside. So I've been walking my dog, and that sort of has been how I've gotten out, and I'm trying to go longer and longer times. But anyway, but then I'm part of like I joined your Discord, and like pretty much almost every Friday I see you're like, hi guys, and I'm like, no, now I have to go on my walk. So like your messages are like my reminders to like go and exercise, and I'm like, oh, okay, fine. Or like every time I see like something that you posted and like it's a really cool, like that's how you get me. You get me with like the really cool like magic is cards, and I'm like, oh
Oh
hey,
yeah,
that's so
my
cool.
Friday
And
Night
then I
Magic
look down
post.
and I'm like, oh, info. Yeah. And I'm like, okay, fine. I'll take care of my health too. I'll
Yeah,
go out on a walk again.
yeah. That's
So
that.
that's those are good reminders that
Mhm.
I really appreciate deep down.
No, I appreciate that because that's why I make those posts every Friday about using the Friday Night Magic cards because it helps remind people of and educate on like small healthy snippets, but it presents it in a way that's is more familiar. And then my other reels, I actually made this post yesterday about why I don't do exercise tutorial videos because everybody and their mother does those, and so I like to produce more content that I view as more valuable, such as like what we were talking about earlier, breaking those mental barriers, starting off figuring out what that recipe is for you on what works. Like you said, um, mental health counseling and stuff like that is very much an experiment, but so is also health and fitness coaching, to where we are saying, okay, you obviously, if you want to lose weight, that's your goal. Cool. We probably should bump up your movement activity, and we should probably address or adjust your food intake. How we do that is very individualized, and so I know it's kind of a cliche as move more and eat less, which ultimately it's true, but it's way, way, way more nuanced than that. And so, like you were saying earlier, when you hear things like that, oh, I just need to move more and eat less, and you see these fitness models on Instagram that have these very unrealistic body expectations, and then your doctor's like, well, your BMI is in the obese range, we need to get you down. You should really go on a low carb diet, which isn't backed by science. And so you have all this conflicting information and misinformation. Then you're just like, this is all way too high of a barrier for me. This is all very unrealistic for me. Therefore, it's not for me, and I'm just going to continue what I'm doing, or like you said, just double down and continue that downward spiral or accelerate that downward spiral that you've been on. And that's where we come in and say, no, no, no. You can absolutely play your games. You can absolutely eat your carbs. We got to do it in moderation. It's having 2 slices of pizza, not a whole pizza. And it's stuff like that that are much more realistic and attainable and sustainable, because we are wanting to enjoy our food. Like, we want to enjoy life. We want to enjoy pizza. We want to enjoy maybe having a drink now and then, but not having pizza and beer for dinner every night.
So I cannot tell you how many times I'm eating chips and then I think about like when I interviewed you, you were like, oh well, yeah, eat chips, but then also like a couple of veggies. And then like sometimes I'm there eating chips and I'm like, okay, I should get a couple of veggies too. And then so like it really is like little things like that that we don't know. And okay, so part of why I wanted to interview you for Psychology for Geeks is because as therapists, we're always like, exercise, you should exercise. But then they're like, how? And I'm like, I don't know. This is like a you problem. But because I don't know anything, right? And then I'm like, I don't have anybody to refer, anybody, not have you. But again, like I don't know anything about like different sort of like there's so many different professions that we are unaware of that can be that gap, right? So like you go to a doctor and they say, be healthier, and then you're like, how do you be healthy? You go to, take care of your mental health, and then we're like, oh, be physically healthy, and then like, how do we do that? I'm like, I don't know. And so like there's so many things that we just don't know or understand, and we think are gonna be very difficult, or things I'm not going to enjoy. Because I think one of the things that I mentioned to you when we last spoke was that my idea of what like a fitness trainer was like somebody yelling at me, telling me to like hurry up and do another push-up. And I was like, no, I don't want to do that. Like if that's what they're gonna like do, I'm like, no, that's not how I work, right? But I never even bothered to look past, oh, are there different types of like people? Like, is that like actually helpful or not? Like I didn't even know anything. So yeah, I just I'm really happy that we were able to connect. And we have this, like, honestly, you guys, I am doing this because, like, for my own physical fitness, so then I can just get all kinds of free information from Jordan about how I can better my health.
Yeah.
And you're welcome for all the free advice you're getting now.
I mean, that's what the Discord's all about. Not to shamelessly plug my Discord, but I try to produce as much free value on my social media and Discord as possible, and really show that, going back to fitness, you said you don't like exercise. It's because you haven't found that outlet. But then you say, I like hiking and photography, which very much is exercise. Walking is one of the best exercises you can do, not necessarily for weight loss, because exercise in general is a bad weight loss tool. So a lot of people say, I need to do more cardio because I need to lose weight. That is a recipe for disaster. But if you're saying, I need to get some more movement in because I'm in my office all day and I stare outside and I see my neighbor's house and I get no sunlight, I get no fresh air. Obviously this helps induce more anxiety and depressive thoughts. So I want to go outside, I want to get some movement in, I want to get the blood flowing, and I want to start feeling better. Walking is phenomenal for that because our body is literally designed to move and outpace larger animals. And that's how us as hunter-gatherers kind of grew up, if you will, because we were able to outpace these larger animals. And so when our body is very efficient at moving, it feels good and it feels natural because that's where we are. And to take that one step further, I have a buddy who's, to put it nicely, he's kind of in a transition away from fitness coaching because he doesn't feel like he's in his element. But he's very in shape, very knowledgeable, but he loves hiking and he loves taking pictures and space, and he took some really good pictures of the eclipse, and he took some really good pictures of the northern lights. Like, I think he drove over six hours just to go see a full eclipse. And so, like, that's his passion. And he's in really good shape and knowledgeable. And I'm like, dude, your avatar is right there. Help people, very similar to you, help people who want to be able to hike more. They want to be able to hike and take photographs. They want to be able to hike to a spot where they can have really good photographs, like take really good pictures. And it's like your avatar is right there, literally yelling at you, not literally, but figuratively yelling at you. And he's in a spot right now where he's probably not going to pursue coaching any further. But something like very much like you, where like, I don't like going to the gym. I don't want somebody yelling at me to do one more push-up. But if somebody says, hey, we're going to do this type of stuff because it mimics what we do on the trail, and this is going to help improve your cardiovascular health, we're going to really nourish our body to improve so we can have much longer hikes. Maybe you have a few goals, like you want to do a 2-day hike. We're going to prime your body for that. And so I think something like that would really speak and resonate to you versus somebody who would say, okay, well, we're going to really hit the gym hard. We're going to hit the weights hard. We're going to really build our strength so that way we can increase the muscle mass and increase the engine in our body to burn more calories. I don't think that would speak to you. Correct me if I'm wrong there.
No. But if you said, so I talked to someone, one of my coworkers. She is right now doing this insane sort of walk, like all over the south of France. I forgot how much it is. But it's like I don't know, like a whole month like hike basically that she has to do. And I had a friend of mine say, hey, the sunrise from the top of Mount Fuji is like the best experience you ever have. And now I have that in my head where I'm like, that would be so cool to do. But then I'm like, yeah, but like I have to exercise like a lot and stuff. Like I don't want to do that. But if you were to say, oh, hey, let's go on like let's schedule 3 or 4 like different hikes like throughout the week or throughout the month that will get me prepared for that, then I'm gonna be like, oh yeah, okay, let's do that. Because then I can take my doggo with me, and like he loves going outside, and that's sort of like more of my incentive, right? So again, we kind of go back to like finding something that's like right for your lifestyle. Because I used to be I used to like work out at home and then go on a run and then like go on hikes, and that was great. But now it's just I'm not in the same position. I don't have the same amount of time as I did back then. And it just doesn't feel right to try to go back. So one of the things that you kind of said earlier was that a lot of people are trying to go back to the things that they used to be able to do before. Do you ever have to like have a serious conversation with them about it's impossible, about how we have to just kind of continue to try to move forward from here?
Yeah, I don't necessarily say it's impossible, but I say a large part of what I do in the very beginning during our onboarding phase is pulling their reins back. And they'll be like, because a lot of times when people sign up with me, they are very motivated to take action, right? This is probably when they're going to be the most motivated. And they're like, awesome, I can do 5 days a week in the gym. I'm going to really cut down on my calories. I'm like, okay, hold on. How many times do you work out now? Well, I don't. How long has it been? I haven't worked out in 6 years. I'm like, okay, well, we're not going to do 5 days a week. Let's pull it back. And a lot of times when I ask that, it'll be because, oh, this is what we did in high school, and this is when I was in the best shape of my life. Like, well, you did that because you were in the best shape of your life. And so we pull the reins back. And I'll try to shift the mindset away from the rearview mirror and into, the windshield, where we are keeping our eyes forward, try not to reflect back on where you were back in your quote unquote prime, but let's just focus on what we can do now and all the growth that's going to happen within our time together. And a large part of that is building a routine, like I said, that is sustainable and realistic to where they are, and then building upon that rather than saying, this is what you did in high school, let's throw it in right here and hope and pray you don't get an injury. Because that's what a lot of people do. And especially in the 30s when they're like, I haven't played basketball in 15 years. I'm going to try to play pickup game with the boys. And one of them blows out their ACL or their Achilles tendon because their body is detrained for the last 15 years. And they think they can pick it right back up. And so a large part of that is, again, pulling the reins back, saying, let's pump the brakes. Let's figure out what's realistic and go from there.
Yeah, because I was thinking too about... sometimes I get people in therapy saying like, oh, I talk a lot about grief with people, whether they either had some sort of injury that makes it difficult for them to do just daily tasks that they were used to be able to do in the past. Sometimes it's, as we age, our body is able, like, the capabilities of our bodies is different, and then so a lot of people start sort of like losing hope, essentially, because they're like, oh well, I can never be as thin as I was when I was like, in my prime or whatever. And then that's why I ask about like health, what is really health, because a lot of people are like, oh, I just want to go back to those good times. And I'm like, there is a way for us to create those good times now. Not exactly the same as it was before, but similar enough, right? So if you are really into like weightlifting, but I don't know, you lost an arm, or like you broke your arm and it doesn't move the way that it used to. Like, there is a way for you to be able to enjoy those things, but just in a slightly different way. As it was before, because a lot of the times too, when I have plans to travel with my parents, and when you are like traveling, I tell them, I'm like, we're gonna be walking a lot, like from the time we wake up to like the time we go to sleep, it's gonna be walking everywhere, because there's so many things that we would like to see, and it's just a lot of walking. And a lot of places there's not a lot of like resting benches or anything like that, so I'm like, yeah, it's gonna be a lot of walking, so like, prepare for that. But then my parents are like, well, I just can't walk as much as I used to before. Do you ever get clients of like a certain age that oh, it just fell off. Sorry. That no, I'm just gonna say, like, did you ever just get clients that are like, I don't know, in their 50s or 60s that are trying to like, be fit,
Rekindle their
or
youth.
stay healthy?
Yeah. I have worked with a handful of clients in the more geriatric side. I would say the people that have worked with, which is a small population, were realistic with their goals, right? They are most of the time more proactive, rather than saying, I'm extremely overweight, I have severe osteoporosis and sarcopenia, and I really need to make a change, versus I just turned 74 and I'm still moving a lot and healthy, but I just want to prolong that health. And so having them with that proactive mindset is very beneficial, because they know that they're not going to be 20 years old and running a marathon if that's not the lifestyle that they've kept up for the last 50 years. And so there have been times where people try to say, I want to be back in my prime, and the prime was when they were in high school, and I was able to do that. I'm like, well, yeah, well, your only responsibility when you were in high school was keeping yourself alive. You didn't have a job, you didn't have school, or you had school, but you didn't have a family, you didn't have kids, you didn't have a partner. Your parents did all the cooking for you, and it's like you have a mountain of more responsibilities now. So being in that quote unquote prime is unrealistic. And especially when I'm working with guys, they tend to have more muscle now because old man strength is very much a real thing. And so when they're like, I want to get down to 180 and they're like 250, when in reality 200 might be where they kind of look similar, but they have more muscle, so they might even look better. Those are the types of numbers that we'll shoot for rather than, let's say, push the envelope to get down to 180, which would make them look starved or emaciated. And so I would say most people have realistic expectations as far as goals are concerned, but I do have to help kind of put the guide rails up sometimes.
No, I'm really interested in this now. I'm going to totally derail whatever plans you had for this podcast. So how do we get people who never had any sort of like fitness training in the past, or are, you know, in sort of like retiring mode at this moment? Because I will like, again, there's a lot of things that we don't fully understand or we don't know, right? But even when that is you, if you're like in, you know, in retirement at this point, you can, there's still ways for you to like, you know, move around and be healthy. But there again, there's this misunderstanding of what being old means and what you're capable of doing when you're old, right? Like you just mentioned, like old man strength it's a real thing. And I just remember, like, dude, seriously, so my grandfather, he's passed now, but he's always been super active. He always was like running around doing everything, always like finding out like how to like do something. He was very active, and he was around like late 70s when we went somewhere and there were a lot of stairs, and I was like, hey, can you just, I was so concerned about him. I was like, just hold on to the railing as you go up. And he did, but he was walking up the stairs a lot faster than I was, and I was like, wait, hold on. I couldn't keep up with him because he was just so fast, because he like his whole life he had just sort of like been walking around and being active. But there's people like me who have either done it on and off like throughout their years, or who have never done it before. So but they can still have the opportunity to like come to you or to someone like you who can help guide them in that sense. So what would be like some of the things that you would make, or like some of the recommendations, like very general ones that that you will make about why people should like reach out to like a fitness coach to try to stay healthier, or to be able to like outpace their granddaughter up some stairs?
Sure. So you said reasons why they would, or things that they can do to improve their health?
Both.
Okay. So I guess the reasons why somebody in the golden years would want to reach out to somebody like me, to a professional, to improve their health, I think are the same reasons why somebody in their 30s would. Longevity. And a lot of people have the end of the road as their final goalpost, but a lot of people are short-sighted in that, where they want to sign up because they have a wedding in 6 months and they want to look the best way that they can, which is fine. But then they're like, well, we want to have kids soon, and I don't want to be a sideline parent. And then with the grandparents, it's the same thing, but with the grandchildren. And so being able to promote longevity, I think, is the underlying theme for everybody who wants to improve their health. And I don't think that there's really any difference between that and like somebody who's like 30. And so it's just the difference between, is it your children or your grandkids? And setting proper expectations. And so if somebody, let's say somebody, because this is a common story, right? Somebody who's 60 or 70, they haven't really exercised since they were 30 when they got married and started having a family. They got a career. Their whole life started to really slow down physically, but ramp up elsewhere. And so they lost all of their normal physical activity, and now they feel like they're weak or weaker and starting to become frail, and they're at that point where a fall could be a death sentence because they break a hip, and they want to improve their strength and their stamina and hope it's not too late. And probably not too late because, like I said, in that 60, 70 range, as long as other markers are healthy, they can do a whole lot. But I would start off much more regressed than I would with like a normal 30-year-old client. And something as simple as getting up out of your chair, standing up tall, sitting back down, standing up, sitting back down. So that way, they're called chair squats. So that way you're in a controlled setting, you're sitting down into a chair, risk of falling is a lot lower. It mimics a normal activity, and transitioning from sit to stand, you're not going to, or it reduces the risk of falling if you improve your strength. Going for daily walks can really help. One story about that is my dad lives in Florida, and he lives in a gated retirement community. He's like the young guy there at like 62 or whatever he is, 64. And there's a lot of amenities. There's 3 different pools, 3 different hot tubs, 2 full-size golf courses, driving range, that type of stuff. So there's a lot of amenities for the people that live there. And you see so many active old people of a healthy weight, walking around, golfing, just like I said, being active. And I think a large part of it is A, they probably never really slowed down, and B, they have access to all this stuff. And I'm not saying you need to live in one of those communities, but going out, walking a dog, playing with your grandkids in a level that's sustainable and appropriate for you will help improve that, rather than saying, I can't do that because of X, Y, and Z, which then furthers you down that path, that decline. So yeah, that was a long-winded way of me saying just do what's appropriate and start as regressed as possible, whether it's standing up out of a chair 5 times a day or going for a small walk, maybe playing pickleball. Everybody's playing pickleball now. And so something that is appropriate for you, and build up, which is the exact same thing that I would say for my 30-year-old clients, or even if I had any 20-year-old clients.
So I'm totally going to steal all of that. Yes, to talk to my clients, because again, I'm like, no, like there's things that you can do. And I think really one thing that I want to prevent my parents from falling into the whole, I am so sorry, I need to take my dog out, otherwise he's going to like be making so much noise. I will be right back. All right, I'm back.
Okay, perfect.
Sorry about that.
No, you're good.
Yes. Good. I am totally going to steal everything you just said, because I have a lot of clients who sort of fall into that sort of like, I guess, trap, you would say, of like, oh, I'm old, I can't do anything anymore kind of thing. And that's what I'm trying. I've seen it a lot in, especially in Mexico, where grandparents are sort of like not having a very active lifestyle, and then so like their quality of life like really like declines significantly. Yeah. And so I'm trying to encourage my parents to sort of like not fall into that, and to still I'll continue being active in a way that's sort of like also fun for them. And yeah, so like I think I just wanted you to like, I guess, send that message out to people and be like, hey, it is possible. Like, it doesn't matter what your age is. Like, you can still like start taking care of like your fitness, and like for, you know, your quality of life in general. Like, you'll be able to like chase around your grandkids. You won't be as tired anymore. Like, you'll be able to go on like family trips and like, you know, walk around as much as you want, kind of thing. Like, that's still possible to do. So I guess I just want to encourage people to like reach out to you and do that.
Well, for sure. I appreciate you plugging me during my podcast.
Yes,
sure.
People do that.
Awesome. I got 2 questions for you. The first one is, why Avatar? It seems like that you center a lot of your content around Avatar. Why do you love Avatar so much?
I think so. I have been going down this rabbit hole of like trying to understand more of sort of like the culture that I came from, and like the ancestors, because there's a lot of, as I've sort of like researched more, there is a lot of indigenous cultures or like ancient cultures that have taken mental health into consideration at one point, but now it sort of like became more of a Western, like European, like American European sort of like thing to do. So a lot of people are like very hesitant to even like talk about.
Yeah, it's become taboo.
yeah, like mental health, or like reach out for a mental health professional. And I'm like, no, dude, like our ancestors used to do it. Like they used to have like flat out like child psychologists, like, you know, during the time of the Aztecs and stuff. Like
Hmm.
that's a thing that sort of happened. So I've been looking a lot into that. And I've been realizing that even though we weren't alive back in the day, like all of those things still like affect us today. There's a lot of things that in our traditions that we forgot, or that sort of became twisted in a way. And one of them is sort of like the idea of like machismo. Like before, it used to be sort of like the warrior type who like is, you know, there to defend and protect, but then it just sort of like got twisted and became this like, oh well, now you're gonna listen to me because I said so, or because I'm the man of the house kind of thing. And I think the more I connect to that, the more I sort of like understand Avatar and the whole aspect of like balance. Like that's what really, really interests me. I mean, other than like it would be so, so very cool if we can like vent elements, you know,
Hmm.
that would be so awesome. But also like just the whole idea of having that balance in your life, in any sort of anything, like whether it's like mental health, fitness, like at work, like we just need balance. We have to the way that we work best is to have that balance. Like we're able to be more productive if we have that balance. We're able to, you know, reach our highest potential if we have some sort of balance in our life. So yeah, that's sort of like why I'm so obsessed with Avatar, because it just sort of like keeps reminding me of how essential it is. Because if it was up to me, I would just focus so much on like the mental health aspect and totally ignore the fact that I should also exercise. But that's not a good balance to have,
Right.
right? In order for me to continue down sort of like my healing journey, or like improving my mental health, I have to, you know,
Hmm.
have some sort of fitness routine happening. So there's that balance that I have to do. So every time I look at sort of like the map or the posters that I have up, and I'm like, yeah, okay, it's all about balance. I have to like, you know, I have to be okay with being sad sometimes. I have to be okay with like forcing myself out of the chair to like, you know, stretch, or
Hmm.
go out and take my dog on a walk or something, because that's necessary. That's something that will be so, so very helpful. And a lot of the times I forget because I'm not very interested in it.
Sure, sure. No, I like that. I like that. We got a few minutes left, and I want to ask one final question, and that is, if you were to create a character sheet for yourself, IRL, what class would you be?
A sorcerer.
Ooh, why?
Because magic is cool, and books. That's all I got. That's all I got. Okay, listen. Magic has been something I have always been super like interested in. Like I could grow up like in the era of like Harry Potter and stuff. Come on, people,
Hmm.
like of course I will love it. But also it would be so nice. Like I just, you know why I really wish magic was real? Because then, you know, that have you ever seen The Sword in the Stone? That like super ancient
No,
animated
I
movie.
I know what it's about, but no.
Yeah, so there is this one scene where Merlin like cleans up the house and like does all the dishes with magic. And I'm like,
Hmm.
wouldn't that be nice? If
Yeah.
I could just wave a wand and then like my house would be clean. That would be amazing. Because then I have time to do other things that I actually want to do. So that's why I really want magic. But I don't know. Okay, so I think I am between sort of like a sorcerer, and I think, wait, I get confused between like class and what's the other one? Like type. Wait, is
Like subclass?
druid a class?
Druid is a class, yes.
Yeah, so like I would want to be something in between like a druid and like a sorcerer,
Okay.
because I sorcerers like are all about like knowledge, right?
That'd be wizards. Sorcerers, it's in your blood. Wizards are, you studied in the arcane libraries forever and dedicated your life. Sorcerers are like, I was just born into it.
Okay, nobody showed this to my brother because he goes on rants every time. I always get confused, and he always like, it's not the same, and I'm like, it's kind of the same. Okay, yes, sorcerer would be better because then I don't really have to do a lot of training, which is fantastic.
Okay, perfect.
But
I like
also,
that.
I enjoyed sort of like the being out in nature as well. So I would like to be a combination of the two.
Perfect. Absolutely. I'll allow it. Cool. I got a jet. Why don't you tell everybody final remarks on how they can get a hold of you, who's Psych4Geeks, why Psych4Geeks, and stuff like that.
Yes, so we are pretty much in every social media you can imagine, and you can find us at Psych, the number 4, Geeks at pretty much anywhere, and Psychology4Geeks.com. That's our website, and we have a lot of like different things that we can do on our website. You will find ways to reach me. I think there's like an email. I am taking charge of all the social media, so you can also send a message through social media, and I am heavily open to doing collaborations and getting to talk to other geeky, nerdy professionals. And yeah, so you guys can reach out, check out our website and all this stuff. And also highly recommend you guys join the Discord, because every Friday you get a reminder to go on and exercise.
Sure.
Like I do. And it's very helpful.
Well, good. I appreciate that plug at the end. Well, Elizabeth, thank you, sir. Or Dr. Sanchez, I should say. Thank you very much for popping on. And until next time.
All right. Bye-bye.